Hey team, Jen here. I am coming to you at the top of week 8. We are getting really close to the end of the term, and I hope that your ducks are feeling like they're in a row as we inch ever closer to week 10. This week, I will be grading your milestone 2, and I will also be grading your discussion forum from week 7 on the pre-Raphaelites. As we move into week 8, we're going to be really interrogating the scientific advancements and the scientific problems of the Victorian period, paying particular attention to the strategies that some of these writers who are writing about science, but particularly in the discourse of faith. And we're evaluating how these writers approach the topic and whether or not their approaches to unpacking some of those complexities between scientific advancement and faith are fruitful, are useful if they function well. So that's kind of our slant. You will definitely be engaging a Darwinian context this week, of course, because Charles Darwin, front of that kind of dialogic in which a scientific discourse is engaged, but it's done in a way that takes into consideration conflicts of faith. So that's what's on the table for this week. You have a discussion board post this week for week 8 concerning the readings on scientific advancement and faith. This week, I would like to see you synthesizing the text that we read for week 8 and the text that we have read before week 8. As we go forward, this is a really good week for you to start synthesizing texts. So what that means is if the text that you read this week or the contexts that you read this week can be compared, contrasted, paralleled, polarized, in any way synthesized with text that we've read previously in this course. Now is a good time to show that you can juggle a number of texts to make a point in a relevant way that moves your line of inquiry forward. This is an art that's going to come into play for your final research papers. So this week in the forums, I'd really like to see you practicing the art of synthesizing texts. I do not actually have an overview video on that yet, but it is coming. Feel free to reach out to me in online office hours or in email or in the general discussion forum or on Twitter if you would like a little bit more of a direction in terms of how to synthesize texts. But remember that the discussion forum is a safe place to play with experimenting and practicing and just trying to figure things out in general. This week also you have your third milestone for your final essay due. And this milestone asks you to write your introduction. Now, as you may know, if you've watched my overview video on introductions before, you know that an introduction need not be just a paragraph, especially when you're writing a longer work. An introduction could be 5 paragraphs, 5 pages, 5 chapters. So when you think about introduction, I want you to think about it a little bit broadly. I also don't want you to write MS3 until you have watched my overview video on how to write a good introduction. I do not want introductions at the graduate level to be broad, to be general, to lack logos. For a lot of ways, the way that a lot of students are taught to write introductions are extremely problematic at the graduate level. They just don't function. The introduction has to have a clear purpose and a clear function. Please make sure that you watch my overview video on how to write introductions, which I've included in this week's post, before you sit down to write milestone 3. Because at the graduate level, at the publishable, academic, peer-reviewed writing level, it's extremely integral that you start to reimagine the function of the introduction. The function of the introduction when you were in high school is not the same function of the introduction when you're trying to get published. I have beef with the way that we teach students how to write introductions, how to write essays in general. I think it does students a big disservice in terms of understanding the true academic genre, because they have to pretty much relearn in a lot of ways what an academic essay does. And that's a shame that we try to teach essay writing in a very reductive, simplistic manner that doesn't ask students to really think about the functionality of what they're writing. At the graduate level, that must change, and it begins with the introduction. So please watch my overview video. I don't want to scare you, but it is important, and it has to be said that the introduction of a 5-paragraph essay that you're taught to write in high school, and even unfortunately in many programs as an undergraduate, it's not the kind of essay that's going to get you published. It's not the kind of essay that graduate work entails. So you really have to pay attention to what the academic essay is. It seems like a basic question, but it certainly isn't when you take into consideration the way that we've been taught to write. So watch that video. I hope it gives you a lot of guidance. I hope you guys have a fantastic week, and I'll see you here next time.